correctly, right? We want to learn how to do the proficiency that has to be demonstrated on these summative assessments. In other words, practicing the very things in the way that we want to do them in a game. And we don't get better by just practicing anything either. You know, if you had, let's just say, 5 teachers teaching American history, 11th grade American history, they'd say, well, the kids need to practice. Well, why do they need to practice? They need to practice doing things in the formats that are on the summative assessment, not 5 different things. The examples could be different, but this would be a conversation among the team, right? And, of course, practice has to be coupled with feedback. It does no good simply to practice something if you don't get immediate sort of feedback. I have a friend and colleague out in the state of Washington. Her name's Janelle Keating. And she's a great example when I say just the vocabulary you use and making things common sense. She's a great example of this. Here's what she said to me one time. She said, you know, Bob, all this professional learning community, school improvement approach, it won't matter unless when a kid is struggling, somebody doesn't pull up a chair, give them feedback, and show them how to do it right. I think that's true, isn't it? Just having somebody practice something, right, isn't enough. Somebody has to, while they're practicing, give them that immediate sort of feedback. And I think that feedback needs to be coupled with encouragement. Feedback can be absolutely devastating if it's done incorrectly. Particularly, for example, here's one of my, I think this is huge. In middle schools, if you embarrass students in front of other students, it'll create a scar that could last the rest of that kid's life. So you have to think about the kind of feedback you give and how you give it. It's just not a willy-nilly thing here. You actually try to give practice coupled with feedback, coupled with encouragement, right? No. So practice isn't enough, though. Practice isn't enough. Guess what we're going to do? Coaches know that Friday night's that big summative assessment. And they know they've practiced. They think they have a good plan. But in the back of their mind, there's this suspicion, wonder if we're ready. Wonder how we would really do. So what they do is they don't wait till Friday night. During the week, as they're implementing their plan, they will have a couple of scrimmages, right? A scrimmage to see if they're ready. And what's interesting is they'll videotape that scrimmage, and then the team of coaches will sit down together and they'll analyze that videotape of the scrimmage. How do they analyze it? Kid by kid, play by play, skill by skill, so that they can make improvements with specific kids. They can intervene prior to the summative assessment on Friday night. Now the same is true with teams of teachers. And what I mean by that is, what do? Teams of teachers will have a unit plan. We will implement this unit plan, but we don't wait to the end of the unit exam to see how our kids are doing. We will what? We will give a couple, 2 or 3, depending on the length of the unit. We call them formative assessments, but essentially it's a what? Academic scrimmage. We're just going to have an academic scrimmage with our kids to see, and here's the secret, it has to be kid by kid, skill by skill. We can't say, it's not enough to say, well, most of our kids seem to be getting this, or most of our kids seem to struggle with this, or we're getting better this year compared to last year on this. All that's interesting, but what we really want to use these data for is to improve the learning of each kid skill by skill. So here's a point. If you're not that specific in monitoring the learning of your students as it's occurring, you're not drilling deep enough, right?